Well, there's really three things they have to do. They have to get merchants live. They have to tell them about their transactions, and they have to pay them. And so those connections, those three connections of getting a merchant live, there's a lot of depth to it. You've got to do KYC and AML and underwriting for the reporting. Probably not, of the three things, that's probably not the hardest. But either the underwriting or the funding. Funding's difficult because you've got to take one pile of money that's put into your account, and you've got to decide which are all of the sub-merchants you have to pay, and how much money do you take out for fees to do that. So that's what I'd say is the hardest thing.
So they can come to us through different channels, but if they do come to us directly, number one is obviously doing your KYC and being able to understand who you're doing business with, who the owners are of that business, making sure that you're covering your three types of risk, right? So your compliance and sanctions risk, so you've got to take care of that, your fraud risk, and your credit risk. And so understanding who that merchant is along with the owners, that's number one priority when they come to us that we talk about.
So I think it goes to the theme that we've heard across all of the different sessions in this super session, which is if you buy it all in one place, there are levers that party can pull to make it harder to leave. And if you choose the best of each, that doesn't mean you don't bundle multiple things together, but like Mahmoud said on the first panel, it's be thoughtful as you're making the decisions about what it means to your future and to your business for each of those decisions. If you're bundling up your acquiring and who takes the risk and your gateway and your PF tools, be mindful that it might be harder to grow up and live on your own.
Yeah, so for me, I think it's more about their own technological savvy, right? Do they have the resources to be able to build a process that can take them from beginning to end? And that's kind of when they're thinking about what do they do, it's, well, what are the resources that you have to be able to integrate and get all the pieces in place that you need to be able to make the decisioning logic, right? So, and that's what it comes down to. So if you've got a PayFac that has a strong IT team that can build that on their own, then coming directly to a company like mine isn't that difficult. But if you've got a company that's a little bit less experienced and there are certain things that they have to have, that it has to be put together. And if it's too difficult, then they're going to be lacking. And in that case, then it makes sense to go to a third party who's already done the research, who's already done the testing, who can make it flexible, because not every company has the exact same needs. So you need to be able to be flexible in that. And so that's when I think it makes more sense to go to a third party. Some of the risks is the business who they say they are, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's a huge, that is the biggest risk, right? Are they the type of business that they say they are? And are they a real business and not a synthetic business, which opens up another whole can of worms around compliance and fraud. So, I mean, that would be the number one issue. Are they really who they say they are from a couple of different angles?
Yeah, I would say a few things. First of all, our take and the way we think about risk monitoring is in sort of two buckets. There's what some people call continuous or progressive underwriting. That is you don't do all the underwriting at the moment you meet the merchant and they first apply, because you might be killing a mosquito with a sledgehammer. But you continue to underwrite it repeatedly throughout. And then the second thing is looking at the patterns of the transactions and deciding whether to do an investigation. And there's a range of tools, and those triggers might be about the behavior of the merchant, or it might just be about the growth of the merchant in their normal life cycle. And for certain types of risks, things like when there's an extended time frame between ordering the service or good and receiving it, that extends the chargeback risks. And when the chargeback risks are extended, your credit risk starts to go up. And so as it gets to a certain size of exposure, which is volume times the amount of risk you're taking, when it gets to a certain amount of exposure, you might want to start to look at credit products. You might do that in the beginning, but you might look at credit products. LexisNexis has I'll pitch it. There's a hell of a credit product that LexisNexis offers that's an alternative to the bureaus and doesn't have the problem with the fraud alerts and the people who put the watch alerts on their credit
Freeze
report.
their credits.
They freeze their credit. And LexisNexis has a way of getting at that stuff, which I think, not to be a commercial, but I think it's really impressive.
You know, the name of the game right now is, you know, automatic onboarding. Right, that's key. How are you able to onboard automated, automatic, fast, and safe? Because that's what, you know, all of the largest, you know, most forward-thinking PayFacs are doing right now. So as quick as you can get there, that's what the merchants want. They don't want to wait around. They want to say, yes, I want you. And they want you to say, you're on, start processing.
Cool. I would say the most important thing is focus on your customers. If you think about your customers, every potential payment facilitator or payment facilitator has customers. And they really should rule. So the model it's not an event, it's a journey. It's not a thing by itself. It's just a means to getting you to better have control and serve your customers. So if you start there, you start from your customers and say, okay, I want to get revenue, I want to increase valuation, I want to do all this stuff, but the customers are the vehicle to that. I would focus my development, I would focus my business planning, I would focus my product, I would focus my servicing, everything on your customers. And if there's tool sets or if you're going to build stuff, if that's going to best serve it, happen faster, great, go that direction, but focus on the customer. So I think the answer to the question, really if you're thinking about what are payment facilitators doing towards financial services, I think you'll hear more of this afternoon from some other panels. We're seeing a huge amount of uptick in faster funding, same-day payments. Same-day payments mean you might be paying before you have the money. Instant funding, that's different from same-day payments. Same-day might be an ACH that you get kind of quick. But there's instant funding where you pay 1% and you get the money in your bank account instantly. These involve credit products. Then there's equipment financing, invoice factoring, loans, merchant cash advance, all of those being assigned. So the question is, what types of risk do you have there? You have compliance risk, fraud risk, and credit risk. Mm-hmm. So the serious answer is any tool that is used to help payment facilitators do their jobs must be able to do those other things by definition. And we see a lot of innovation going that way. Things like taking a capture, being able to take the transaction after, because what happens, it gets authored, it gets captured, it gets settled, it gets funded. Well, taking a file or an API call when a transaction gets captured, using that to determine funding and then sending the funding instructions right away or on demand, that's an opportunity. Not very many transactions fall apart at interchange. A lot of them fall apart between auth and capture, but a lot of them fall apart at interchange. So unless it's an intentional act, fraud, unless it's an intentional act, it's not such a bad way to calculate funding.